West Tigers Faithful, episode 42, and today it's the hen's teeth, the Charizard of West Tigers podcast. You find West Tigers Faithful podcast. You find them under your bed occasionally, like an old sock. They are indeed the Wincasts. They're always a little bit better. They're always a little bit more positive, and we have shitloads to talk about. And to do it all with me from Go to Woe is Joe Mac McCord. How are you, mate?
Good, Jared. How are you?
Mate, really good. I'll get this out of the way really, really quickly. This is my last podcast for a couple of weeks. I am going to the island state, Tasmania, with my beautiful partner, Bianca. And we'll leave you all in Mac's very, very capable hands. So excited before my little hiatus to deliver a great little episode. So to give you a rundown of what's going on, we're going to talk that man Jarome Luai and that man who has been critical of Jerome, the man next to me at the moment. We're going to talk roster management and a look at 2026. We're going to recap the Titans game. We're going to have a look at the Panthers game. And as always, New South Wales Cup jersey flag and a proper segment for the girls. I think that's probably the right thing to do. Before any of that, though, I have a job for all of you. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell, get your notifications. Please interact with us, whether it be on different social medias, in our sub-threads on the West Tigers forum, on X, all those different things. We love it. We do it for that reason, interaction and enjoyment from you guys. We've had plenty of messages this week, some good, some not so good. But regardless, all of them we appreciate and we take on board. And with that in mind, Mac, I know you have a few things to say about said messages.
Yeah, look, last week I said some things, and I own that. I said some things that a lot of people thought were stupid, and that's okay. I don't claim to be much other than a fan, a faithful member, and I would barely qualify as a journalist. But what I do know is that even though I consider myself barely qualified to be a journalist, I'm still probably more qualified to be an NRL journalist than most of these idiots out there. So with that in mind, look, you may disagree with a lot of what I've got to say at times. And, I listened back to the podcast. I do every week. It's how I make sure that things are always improving. And I did say some pretty stupid things. I said Brisbane should try to get rid of Payne Haas. That was a pretty stupid thing to say. Brisbane shouldn't try to get rid of Payne Haas. But I also, I'll stand by some of what I said too. The point I was trying to get at about Jarome Luai, I feel like in a lot of ways it kind of got reinforced by the performance on the weekend. I know we had a win, but Jarome Luai did struggle. He seems to be overplaying his hand quite a bit. And I know a lot of people are wanting to be, optimistic and positive, and this podcast is called West Tigers Faithful. So despite the fact that, my skepticism about Jarome remains, I'm going to try to be optimistic. A win does change a lot. I feel a lot better this week. How about you, Jared?
Mate, I'm feeling good. Obviously, we both share the X account. I got some pretty interesting notifications. And obviously some comments in different places. And look, ultimately that sort of feedback's unreal. And and we take it on. And I like everybody else, definitely takes your accountability on board. But at the same time, mate, you have an opinion. You're entitled to it. We have about roughly a good sort of 500, 600 listeners a week, a very, very tight community who we adore and appreciate. And ultimately, people are going to have different thoughts, and that's how it is. I am the optimist, most certainly for the most part. I think people can see these last few weeks my optimism's been tested. I think after the Manly game, that's the lowest I've been after a Tigers loss in many, many, many years. But look, I have some thoughts around Jarome Luai, and people aren't going to agree with them the same way that they aren't going to agree with yours. But That's the beauty of, this great game and by extension, this podcast. And, we try as best as we can to try and, bring light to all those opinions, yours, mine, and the people who listen and interact with us by extension. So feeling great and ready to rip into some good hard analysis. I think back to our roots this week is something that we definitely preached within our DMs, and I think we're going to do that straight off the bat. So if you don't mind, I will kick into that. Guys, what we are going to do is a roster management and 2026 outlook. We're going to look at how we're going in Flegg, New South Wales Cup, and SG Ball. I know it finished many, many moons ago, but nonetheless, it's probably the next grade in terms of the pathways, and just to have a look at where we're at. I only have wins, draws, losses, and buys to sort of compare in terms of records, but nonetheless, there's some analysis to sort of talk about. So we'll do it grade by grade. Mac, you pick the grade: Cup, SG, or Flegg. Do you want to go down or up?
You want to go the pathways to start the show. Fair enough. Let's start with Flegg.
Okay, no dramas. All right, well, as we know that the boys had a win this week and against the highly fancied Panthers, which we'll talk about later in the show, but nonetheless, I just want to give you the 2024 win-loss column and then 2025. So 2024, at this time last year, 10 wins, no draws, 11 losses, 1 bye. Interestingly, the win-loss column reads worse in 2025. So 8 wins, 2 draws, 9 losses, and the 1 bye. Straight away, you can tell if that draw against the Warriors, and I forget who the other one was against, we're probably in a similar position. But just some really quick analysis for you guys. A lot of squad turnover, which you'd expect in a Flegg side. A lot of 21-year-olds that obviously graduate to obviously higher honours or into another system, Ron Massey Cup or otherwise. Those guys that are still around the squad, Max Tautua as opposed to Mitch, Tino Tavana, Max Lyles, and Jared Haywood. Those are the guys that are mainly there. Tom Fisher's sort of hanging around a little bit, but hasn't sort of featured recently. Typically around since Shane Sultana took over. And speaking of, they are a very, very, very different side, even compared to the beginning of the year. I think that Sultana's coaching methods, I hear that he's a bit of a guy that's not afraid to have a robust conversation. But from my perspective, given the improvement of Balmain last through SG Ball and his coaching methods have meant that we're more structured, we're more balanced across the park. I thought moving Saukuru to the centres has been a really, really smart move. Maddai and Lyles are a great little halves pairing. Deninja at the back, Haywood at 9, Lanyon at 13. Sort of swapping around with Liata Gaga, we're an all-round better side. Now, there's some clear standouts, but definitely New South Wales Cup has meant that they haven't been, sort of promoted or called upon to that grade as quickly as they usually would, and that's breeding a pretty positive environment, I think, and I think they are much better than their win-loss record suggests. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that even though the win-loss column at this time is worse than it was last year, the side is a better side. We had a really rough start to the year. The other thing I'd probably mention about this Flegg side is that it's young. It's packed to the brim with SG Ball age talent. You alluded to that. You alluded to a few specific names. But a guy like Logan Deninja, he started the season in relative obscurity in Far North Queensland. So in the last few weeks alone, we've taken down the teams coming second and third. So while they may have left their run a little bit late, it may be a real challenge for them to make the finals. I'm not too fussed about, if there being any kind of regression in the Flegg side. Quite the opposite. I feel like it's a side that plays really, really high level football every week. And is if they do manage to somehow sneak themselves into the finals, they will give it a shake. Because as you can see, they can go with anybody. For me, the standout there, and we'll talk about him a bit more detail when we get to the Flegg wrap, is Logan Deninja. As the season has progressed, he has just gotten better and better. From SG Ball, he was. It took a little bit to find his footing and to actually get himself involved with regularity. And then once he actually, figured that out, he started making line breaks with regularity, scoring length of the field tries, and he's doing the same thing in Flegg. it's really exciting too, because the Tigers generally, we do unearth talent. But the talent that we unearth is very rarely prototypical to the positions that they play. You even look at somebody like Lachlan Galvin, very, very weird prototype for a half, right? All of our forwards are kind of, not prototypes. When we unearth a back rower, they're a bit unique. There's always a little bit of like a point of difference to all of the talent. Jordan Miller was a ball playing forward, but Logan Deninja is an out-and-out prototype. Like he is Keanu Kinney style, Ryan Pappenhausen style fullback, and he's arriving just in the nick of time too with what's on the horizon with Jerome Buller, which we may not get too detailed into that this week, but obviously we know that some people have some concerns about that due to who his agent is and a photo that popped up in the media this week.
Yeah, I believe there might already be a question in the Q&A. And speaking of, if you have any questions, make them known. Let's jump into New South Wales Cup. So this one, straight away, it's a marked improvement that you can see in the win-loss columns and obviously on the field. So 2024, at this time last year, we had 3 wins, no draws, 16 losses, and a solitary bye. 2025, we also had 1 bye, but 7 wins as opposed to 3. A draw, as many of you remember, against the Bulldogs on King's birthday, and 11 losses. So I think there's been a lot of turnover and instability. I think really at the beginning of the season, obviously we were calling for Aaron Pate's head. There was a couple of guys that were coming and going. There was injuries or suspensions and different things happening with the first grade side, and as a result, they really, really struggled at the beginning of the year. But what you're beginning to see now is this side work out who it is and what it is. And that, I think that's really come off the back of signing some experienced second graders, some of which have gone on to higher honours. Tristan Hope's one of them. Isaac Tuitupo, who we'll talk about, makes his club debut this week. But Kurt Falls as well, Charlie Murray, Jackson Rami. Having these guys, plus the flow-on effect of having some signings that were made for the first grade side has pushed some other players down. Fatape, Naden, etc. The last few weeks, it's become a lot more stable. Obviously, they lost to the Panthers last week, and we'll get to that, obviously, but so much better. And we've spoken about it before. I thought that Christian Mapapalangi, he's been moved around these past few weeks, but I thought that him and Kurt Falls were perfect for each other. You had Brent Naden, who is phenomenal at this level, sweeping around the back. And some great yardage players in Luke Lauliti and Isaac Tuitupo, and some really hard workers in the middle. It seems to be a cornerstone of a lot of our pathway sides that's really helped us. And obviously the improvement of Kit Lauliti and his work rate, which we'll get to. I think he's injured this week, but nonetheless, he's great. The injection of guys like Peter Tarteo and Royce Hunt into this grade, I think, has helped them as well and given them some size. So look, I think this side is pretty much tracking in a similar vein to the NRL side, albeit probably a little bit better. But I think with the further addition of quality, so some top 30 depth signings coming in next year that will sort of build up that side, plus some youngsters. From the Flegg side, your Tavanas, your Haywoods, your South Kurus, your Tautuas, these sorts of guys coming through. I think we'll be tracking quite well.
Yeah, this is, I think, where most of the growth in the whole squad is being seen, aside from the NRL side, obviously. But I mean, this time last year, this side should have been forfeiting games. They were. And for the last couple of years, we've had pretty diabolical New South Wales Cup performances. The most important thing is that we have guys playing in this level week in, week out that provide genuine depth, and that's kind of what you want. You'll get maybe 1 or 2 a year maximum that come from the New South Wales Cup squad, the open age squad, and actually turn themselves into week in, week out first graders. It's quite rare. We've seen Sione Fainu do it, but it's quite rare. But what you really do need is to be able to turn to these guys, not just to play one game here or there, but sometimes to play several, right? Like when you have an injury crisis, you want to be able to lean on, your middles from the New South Wales Cup side to come in and play off the bench and actually give you quality, not just fill a hole in the roster. And that's what we're starting to see. Not so much with the forwards, but at least with the outside backs. The outside backs depth, halves depth is improved. Hooker depth, but the next step is to bring in more pigs, right? Like more middle forwards and back row depth. And as you say, this New South Wales Cup side will probably crack next year because they're gonna kind of have improvement from both directions. You know, we're going to push some guys down the roster who are in the NRL side, as guys like Marcassini and Taylor May's now in the side, and Kai Pearce-Paul, and that pushed themselves into regular NRL. Guys are going to come back, and then you're going to have guys from this Flegg side that's performing really, really well push through, and maybe even guys from outside of the Flegg side, guys like Christian Tapau-Moores and Phoenix Godinez and things like that with good off seasons may push themselves into the New South Wales Cup side. So I would expect, and it'd be a bit of a barometer for me. I would expect the 2026 West Magpies to be a highly competitive team.
With you there, my friend. Speaking of the West Magpies, we'll now switch to their under-19 side, so their SG Ball. Win-loss record was actually really similar this year compared to last year. There was 4 wins, 1 draw, 4 losses in 2024. 2025 was 4 wins, no draws, 5 losses. Because we've got 2 sides in this grade, I'll be really quick. Really hard to compare the 2 campaigns because you had guys that were contracted to the top 30 playing in 2024. Your De Silvas, your Lali'i brothers, Jordan Miller. These guys were coming up and down. It was kryptonite for cohesion. Obviously, Galvin was part of the first grade preseason and wasn't a part of that. And yeah, it was a topsy-turvy year. They had some good games against some heavyweights, but yeah, you compare it to 2025 and it's an entirely different year. I think that we really lacked class in the spine from the outset. We lost Cooper Black, Anthony Large, Alex Isdale, all, different parts of, the last few years. Thought that Riley Ointman had a phenomenal year, but even then he was the fill-in guy. Ali Carnab was our first choice, but ultimately there was some wonderful individual performances from the players that have been earmarked for future honours. So Hiamasi, Phoenix Godinez, Tapau-Moores, and Byron Pepper, Archie Duncombe. All those guys had their moments in the sun, but realistically they couldn't do enough to win us games because of the class that we were missing at 6, 7, and 9. From in my opinion, yours.
Yeah, I think that the West side, you couldn't have said it better. Like it was a side that really struggled to use its weapons, and that was primarily because the halves were just not really up to it. Hopefully, they can remedy that. I know that there's some pretty good. There was some pretty good spine players coming out of the Harold Matt side who may push into SG Ball next year. That will probably improve that. Somebody even like guys like Javier who will probably push through to SG Ball next year. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and he's a ball playing 13. He'll help with that. But at the same time, they're going to lose some. Obviously, Marcy's not going to be there. I doubt Godinez and Tapau-Moores will be too old to be in SG Ball next year too, right?
Yep. It's going to be a...
Yeah, so...
actually, no, Godinez will be...
Godinez might be still the same age.
There. Tapau-Moores will move on. So
yeah, so it'll be a very different looking Magpies side. Probably. I know a guy like Glassy started the year in the SG Ball side and kind of got pushed out because his performances weren't up to scratch. But he's had a really good schoolboy season, and he's playing really, really well in rugby.
Yep.
So he'll probably come back into calculations too.
Yep, guys like Curtis Lakeman, Javon Lele, Thomas Field. I think that Yakub Ali Jaida might go into there. Yeah, there's definitely a lot to like. I know that Jake Gaffney definitely goes in there. Kai Penfold potentially as well. So, look, that Harold Matt side, just to really touch on it quickly, they had an amazing start of the year and then fell off the wagon, and that kind of coincided with Siatame sort of being injured. They need to do a lot there to ensure that they don't have a similar storyline next year. But look, definitely a side to watch, and it'll be interesting to see which players do drop down those 19-year-olds. Mussy won't, but in terms of Phoenix, Godinez, Tapau-Moores, etc. But we'll wait and see. Balmain, it's really, you can see the improvement straight away. 2024, they didn't win a single game, 9 losses. 2025, they beat those West Magpies, and and that was one of their 5 wins and 4 losses. So they actually won more than they lost. But look, I'm beginning to sense a theme with Shane Sultana a little bit. Always has a really, really strong, talented spine. He has a 7 that's very methodical, directs play quite well. He has a 6 that's able to come up with points. He had that in Cohen Benson. He's got it in Iverson Matai now. Obviously, Logan Taninja and Jared Haywood are both the 1 and 9 in both of his sides, even though they're different grades. But again, hardworking tradesmen in the pack, guys like Zane Farmer-Kay, Blake Van Dree, William Stone, those sorts of guys, they were massively important. But it was their fitness and their commitment that allowed them to, I think they ended up second at one point midway through the year, that allowed them to be better than sides that were far better than them on paper. And, it really spoke to the work that Bronson Harrison, Shannon Gallant, and by extension Shane were doing with that team. So, yeah, that's probably the biggest improvement, them in reserve grade for sure.
Yeah, I think that the Balmain side, the highlight there is definitely the coaching, and Shane Sultana rewarded by being promoted into the Flegg role. And, it is something that fans don't really look at much, is coaching development. People say a lot about our lack of experienced assistant coaches and what have you, but Matt Betsy is somebody whose background is in coaching development. That's what he focused on at Cricket Australia. So when you see coaches that are progressing from SG Ball to Flegg and, having an impact, the Balmain SG Ball side last year was very, very poor. I don't think they won one game.
Not one. Duck egg.
So for them to go from that to 5 and 4, and then for him to step into Flegg and improve the Flegg side's results too, shows he's a very good coach. And I know that they fell away at the back end of the season. Hard to say why. They weren't really injury hit or anything like that. It just seemed like, to be honest, that they were redlining to get the results that they did, because it's not a very star-studded roster. It was a roster that was, there's a couple of really good players in Haywood and Logan Taninja in it, and Mark Tannis, but the rest of them were kind of like unheralded. And they were getting a lot of value out of those unheralded guys. For me, the guy that kept coming up every week was Blake Van Dree. He was a signing from, I think it was North Sydney, who are an unaffiliated side in Harold Matts. They don't actually they're not part of an NRL's pathway team. So he got found from an unaffiliated Harold Matts side, and he was great. A very small but very game middle forward, played 13, and just had something about him. There was just a hunger to him and a tenacity. I remember watching one game there where, he copped 3 of the biggest hits I've ever seen, all within about a 10-minute period. And then he ended up scoring a try after it, running a courage line. Like, for a young fella to do something like that sort of shows the kind of character of the dude. Pretty sure he's a country boy. If I remember, I did a little bit of background research on him. I could be wrong on that, but I vaguely remember, I think he was from like somewhere in the Western Tablelands or something like that. But somebody to keep an eye on. I really hope we keep him. He seemed like he was a bit of a coach's pet too, and why wouldn't he be when he has that sort of mentality? But look, the reason why we wanted to touch on this is to provide a little bit of optimism, because I know that there's been a lot of negativity from the NRL side and on this loss streak and stuff like that. But when you put into perspective where we are on the 22nd of July, 2025, at SG Ball results, Balmain's improved out of sight. Maybe West have gone a little bit backwards. Flegg's a better side, even though the results aren't necessarily there. New South Wales Cup, massive improvement. Obviously, we're 12th in the NRL. It just goes to show, that there is actually not just improvement in the NRL squad. The whole organisation is improving. The whole organisation from top to bottom is in a better place than it was this time last year.
Trust in the big man. He knows what he's doing. All right, there's been some squad updates in recent times. Uppy Coruscant signed a 2-year extension, finalised today. I believe that he is actually on a little bit less than what he is now. 1, because he's getting a bit older, and 2, because he will get a post-footy job at the club. I'm just going to read the quote. This club has become family to me. I've felt nothing but support from the players, staff, and especially Benji. He's someone I really admire and enjoy playing under. I'm going to use it straight away. Shane Richardson basically said we didn't want another Adam Reynolds at South situation. We need senior leadership. He is this club. Benji sort of called him the heart and soul of this club today. Obviously, the collateral damage is that we lose Talon to Silva. I'm not happy about it. Nonetheless, he's gone now, but our succession planning now with Tristan Hope also elevated to the top 30, which we'll talk about in a little bit, plus Jared Haywood's retention until the end of 2028. Our hooking is secure and sorted, and our succession plan is clear. Mac?
Yeah, I'm happy about it. Obviously, his form of late hasn't been where I would expect it to be generally. Maybe the contract conversations were distracting him. It does happen. Off-field things do distract certain players. They sometimes struggle with that. Maybe he was having some doubt about the fact that Talon left and maybe felt bad about it, or who knows what was going on inside of his head. But hopefully now he's put this behind him and he can focus on football, be the player that we know he can be. I think that also it's good to hear that he's actually taking a deal that's lower than his current, because he was not very highly paid anyway. So that kind of actually gives us. I was under the impression that he was going to be getting an upgrade. So that gives us the capacity to potentially, I know we've upgraded Tristan Hope and Jared Hayward's on dev next year, but it gives us the capacity to potentially go and sign an additional, maybe utility 9 type cover for him to add to the roster, and even potentially, if Appy maybe next year he starts to trail away, we're not super over leveraged on his last couple of years of his contract and can potentially actually go and sign a 9 if Hayward's not ready, and move Appy to the bench role, because you'd probably be okay with Appy becoming like a 35-40 minute bench player in his last couple of seasons if he's not being paid a fortune.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. I actually think that his deal was heavily back-ended, so it averaged out at about that 6 to 650 mark, but this year he's on a shitload. So similar to what Brooks's deal was when Madge did that mega deal for him. So look, it doesn't really matter. There's plenty of space in the cap, but obviously it's been pared back. And obviously life after footy, it's good to keep a guy like Uppy at the club, and I'm delighted. I touched on it before, and so did you. Tristan Hope elevated to the top 30, and his old Brisbane Tigers counterpart Charlie Murray in the development squad. Happy with both of these. We needed a genuine backup 9, as you say. We may need a 9/13 to sort of play off the pine, but nonetheless, I'm happy with both of these. It makes sense. I didn't think Charlie was top 30 material. Respectfully to Charlie, I think development is perfect, and I think for Hopey, I think getting that minimum wage deal 28-29 next year, I think it works really, really nicely. I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I'm not super unhappy with it. I'm not super chuffed on Charlie Murray getting a developmental roster spot, because we have so many developmental players that we are now at risk of losing. And I don't think Charlie Murray was going to factor into anybody else's plans for a top 30 or developmental roster spot. So I would have preferred to try to retain Charlie on one of those off-season training trials, the way we did Ruben Porter. Because now we have one developmental roster spot left, and there's quite a few players that are going to be in the crosshairs of other clubs. Tristan Hope getting an upgrade's a no-brainer. It's probably overdue. I would have probably upgraded him several months ago. Even with Talon here, I probably still would have upgraded him, because I feel like having only 2 hookers in the top 30 for 2026 is taking your life into your own hands from a roster management perspective, especially when one, Appy is now getting to the point where playing 80 is pretty clearly beyond him. So you're going to have Hope in the side pretty much every week by the looks of it, unless we bring somebody else in, which means that we're going to be, probably looking at Haywood as a week in, week out 9 in New South Wales Cup, which is, a risk too, because he's still so young. You see it now, with Hope being in the NRL side, we're playing Joe Lovadua every week in New South Wales Cup, and he's just up to that level. So it's interesting. I still think we're probably a genuine hooker, not even a utility. We're probably still a genuine hooker short of where we should be in terms of top 30 depth chart. It is an important role to have depth coverage for, in my opinion.
Interesting. You still think we're a 9 short even with Hope and Haywood?
Well, Haywood's only on development, and I wouldn't be really entering 2026 with any kind of anticipation that Jared Haywood's going to really play any genuine minutes. And it kind of ties into something else I was going to potentially talk about. I'll try not to deviate too much, but I think as a club, we need to move away from having the bottom 6-7 players in our top 30 being developmental type players that you can't really rely on, and instead having actual experienced sort of mid-20s NRL players that you can actually lean on, and that's fine because Jared Haywood's not in the top 30, right? That sort of works better for me. In the past, and I think you'd agree, Jared Haywood probably would have been upgraded to top 30. That's why you see guys like Solomone Sakuru and Josh Fellerty and things like that, in the top 30, and Josh Fellerty now leaving. So, at this point, with the balance of the roster and how many spots we have left for 2026, I doubt we're going to see an out-and-out 9 signed, but I would definitely like a middle that can cover the 9-13.
I know we're both fans of Havili. He'd be that guy. I just want to bring the chat back to, obviously, the development list. It looks like now there's 1 spot left. And we can talk about some candidates, but also some guys that you think should be getting an NRL preseason, a train and trial contract at minimum. Do you want to sort of run me through the guys that you've got on there?
Well, yeah. So with the signing of Charlie Murray to the developmental roster, it gives us 1 spot left. So, and not every NRL club actually uses all the developmental roster spots, I might add. So there's no guarantee that we'll even actually have a 6th, but we've got 5. So we've got Christian Tapau-Moores, Jared Haywood. Help me out here. We've got Charlie Murray. I believe Phoenix Godinez is on development next year.
That's Lachlan Broadalow.
And Lachlan Broadalow. So that's 5. So we've got 5 on development next year. Max room for 1 more. Now, we have some players in that Flegg side who are starting to show signs of, when you look at what they're doing every week in, week out, they're NRL players. And the 3 that I'm going to call out, I've already mentioned one, which is Logan Deninja. He's a prototype. He's not from Sydney. So that immediately for me sets off alarm bells, because we've seen in the past, when we've had Queensland kids, they're a flight risk. So if we're not actually really prioritizing this kid, it has me worried. And if he's not on development, then another club offers him a developmental contract. He's within his rights to walk. So it's a worry for me if we don't have Logan Deninja wrapped up. The second one that I think deserves a look is Josesi Lanyon. Josesi Lanyon is that 9-13. So he started off the season in Flegg as the 9, and after the SG Ball season, Jared Haywood pushed through and initially pushed Josesi to the bench, but then Josesi played some games at 13, and Sultana really liked what he saw. Runs very straight, runs very hard, solid front-on contact in defence, and he has the skill of a 9, very good player. And obviously it's in his genetics too, because he's got a younger brother who played Harold Matthews at the Magpies named James Lanyon, who we talked about earlier in the year. He's a winger. He's a freak. And there's been a highlight that popped up over the last week of James playing in that Cubs game I think it was against the France travelling side. Was it that one, or was it a different Cubs game?
Yeah, French Invitational side, yep.
Oh, yeah, James Lanyon, my friend. Keep an eye on that kid, because he is different. So he's and the third one, I'll actually segue into this, because there's actually a comp between these two that I made. The third one is Tino Tavana. So every man and his dog online that's around the Tigers and knows about the pathways and the extended roster squad is wondering why Tino Tavana is still playing Flegg. So Tino Tavana, week in, week out, he pulls off match-winning plays. The problem with Tino Tavana is between the freakishness, he's pretty plain. So he doesn't give you consistent 80-minute high upside play, especially for a winger, because wingers these days have to be extra forwards, they have to be props. he's just freak in the sense that he can do things that other players can't do. Like he'll like put a chip kick in over his own head, type things like that, like with facing the wrong way and somehow pull it off. Like he can catch a high ball above his head with one hand. Like he's a genuine freakish skill player, and he's not tiny. Like he's like 84 kilos and 5'11", so he's not like very very small, especially for a young dude. But where he's freakish from a skill perspective, James Lanyon is a freak athlete. James Lanyon is somebody who, when we spoke about him earlier in the year and watched the Harold Matthews games that he played, he looked like an NFL running back. Like he was hitting defenders and doing spin moves like Saquon Barkley. He's and he's fast. And I think what a lot of people forget is that when they're 16, 17, 18 and they're fast, they get faster. Like humans don't actually become their fastest selves until their mid-20s generally. So that's why I think, guys like Luke Lawley might not look like speed machines in the NRL right now, but he's going to get faster. KO Weeks this year is being talked about as a speed machine. He hasn't been really a speed machine until this year. So they do get faster as they get older. But anyway, I digress. James Lanyon, one to watch. But those are the three names from Jersey Flegg that I'm wary of and of leaving and getting poached, especially because they all, Logan Deninja, prototype fullback, perfect. He's the perfect person for us to have as cover in case of Buller leaving. He arrives right on time to be like 2021 when Buller's off contract. Josesi Lanyon is that ideal 9-13 fit. And Tino Tavana's just... unfortunately, I think he might be the odd one out because he's just an out-and-out freak. He's just the sort of player that another club will just go yoink and immediately, like I could see another club just yoinking him, putting him on the wing in first grade in round one and us being like, there it is.
That is possible. Look, he'd be priority one for me unless we go and sign somebody externally for that sixth development squad. As far as I'm aware, actually Noah told us on that episode in January that him, Lolsey, Jared Haywood, and Tino were all picked for that first trial against the Dogs because they worked the hardest during pre-season for New South Wales Cup. So he's got the right attitude and the will to work, and he's got that freakish nature to his game. So with the first grade pre-season, I think he'd only go from strength to strength. So at minimum, I'd be giving him a train and trial contract. I'm with you there. On Deninja, I think, his talent is undeniable. I would be waiting a year. I think I'd probably put him on development squad 2027. I'd try and get that done in a similar manner to Lachlan Broadalow. Give him the NRL pre-season, promise him development, go from there. That's what I'll be looking at. Max Tautua, one that you didn't touch on. I think he's probably been one of Flegg's best players this year. I think he's been phenomenal. I think he might have one last year, mind you, in Flegg. But he's one I'd be looking at as well. And then obviously, as you said, Joseph Lanyon. They'd be my picks for certain. But what the club decides to do, I'm not entirely sure. That said, look, there are some headaches and it's nice to have them. But at the same time, they need to make sure that they really make these young fellas feel special and feel wanted because they are at that age where they are supposed to go to New South Wales Cup. And while we are creating depth and we are creating log jams, which is a great thing, and we're building out our depth charts, we also don't want these very, very promising players to fall off as well. I've got one little thing here to speak about, and that's obviously backline composition. We'll talk about Taylor May's performance in a little bit, but just in terms of where you're at after seeing Hiamasi, after seeing Taylor and whatnot, just in terms of your starting back five, I like for next year, I'll actually go first. Buller at the back, obviously. Taruva, right wing. I'm going to go Hiamasi, left wing. Right centre, Stafford, left centre, Taylor. I just think that with Giral, there's just concerns around his hamstring. There's some issues around defensive movement. I don't think he's as quick as Hiamasi, and I don't think that they will prioritise him in the same manner as they will Taylor and Hiamasi. I just think in terms of talent, I think that will be the starting side. I think that Skelly, would be a more than able backup. And you look at his role at the Dogs, I think he would probably file into something like that. I would love to be wrong. I absolutely love him as a player, but that's where I'd be going. And I think based on what he's done this year, Stafford absolutely is a walk-up starter at right centre there. Taruva and Buller pick themselves. So that's where I'm looking. In terms of depth and where that sort of sits, I'd have Luke Laulea at the back. One of Tui Tupor and Staines. It looks like they're both fighting it out for a top 30 contract. So one of those boys I'd have Tavana there as well. In the centres, I'd have Skelton on a wing, and that last centre position, I'd have to get back to you. But yeah,
probably Max Tautua, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'd have him there, or let me have a look. Obviously Heath Mason, where he falls in there as well. I'm not too sure, but that's what I'd be looking at.
No, do we?
No, but we'll get to that.
Look, I think I agree with your back five. Obviously, there's plenty of water to flow under that bridge off season. You never know what happens. Here, Marcy Marcassini is already very good, and with the benefit of the rest of this season, and he'll probably get blooded at some point. He might be a player who comes into first grade and is just undeniable from drop. So there's not really, there's no guarantee Stafford Toa is the right centre come round one next year, which is remarkable considering he's probably been our best player for most of the season. However, it is what it is, right? This is good. Stafford Toa is the sort of player who, if he gets pushed out of the back five, the strongest back five at the club, and he's depth, you're in good, you're in good hands at that point. I agree with everything you said. I think Skelton is somebody who I wouldn't mind. Maybe a strange thing to suggest, and I know I've suggested plenty of times this season that I think he should move to the pack. But at the very least, if he's not going to be in the starting back five, he's probably the one player out of the backline depth in the NRL side who I wouldn't mind seeing on the bench in first grade for that reason.
Yeah, he could do that.
Because he's the sort of guy you could potentially bring on and play him in the middle for like 20 or 30 minutes to give punch. Imagine Jarrell Skelton, healthy Jarrell Skelton, no hammy issues, just coming on after 25 and just being around the middle. Imagine him just blindsiding players and taking hit ups right up the guts off of short balls from Appy. I know Tuiaki used to do that a lot. Used to take a lot of hit ups up the middle. Matt Utah used to take a lot of hit ups up the middle. Marika, one of his best highlights is a try score straight up the guts. Having good strong outside backs playing minutes in the middle is a bit of a lost start. But then obviously he's very, very good cover in the outside backs, especially if you got Marcassini on the wing, because Marcassini shuffles into the centres, does a great job. You bring Skelton, play him on the wing. So that's probably where I have it. Look, I also don't write off Luke Lalali. If he is uber talented, and he is a year older than Marcy Marcassini, he'll probably take it as a little bit of a competition between him and Marcy, I suspect, in the off season, and it might bring out the best in young Luke.
Yeah, I think it might. I think those two might create quite the formidable combination, but we will see. Just talking about the top 30 on a wider note, there's I think by my count, 22 or 23 contracted, 7 left, couple of guys off contract. Adam Dewey is one of them. Beyond, obviously, we've spoken about the 9/13 hybrid. One of Tui Tupou and Staines likely getting a full-time deal. There's Adam Dewey, who's up in the air. Where are you seeing gaps in the roster, I guess, and what would you like the club to prioritise? Backup half's another as well.
So I was having some thoughts about the Dolphins. The Dolphins having such a good season, especially, as the season's progressed, other sides are sort of getting a little bit weary. The Dolphins are just getting better and better. And I thought about why that might be. And it sort of clicked to me. It's like when I was watching their game and they mentioned that the Dolphins are missing and have been missing for a while, Flegg, Gilbert, Daniel Saifiti and Felice Kafusi, and they're still winning the middle. When other sides are missing their top 2 props, much less 4, they're dog water. Can you imagine what our middle would look like if we had to play without Terrell May, Alex Twal, Fonua Bole, and those 3 aren't as good as Flegler, arguably Daniel Saifiti. So it's not like the Dolphins are missing, like had an average pack to begin with, and it was just about no, they were top heavy, but they brought in guys like Mark Nichols, Josh Kerr, Ray Stone, and those guys are plussing the roster. We would be bringing in Jackson Rami on debut, Kit Lalali'i, not tested, Ruben Porter, not really up. We would be dog water. So I think that tells you the answer to my question. I think we need to turn Felity, Matamua, Toomuth, those roster spots into 3 middles that we can rely on. 3, not 2 in a back row, or 3 middles.
Okay.
I think we do need back row depth as well. I think there's other ways to achieve that and it's also partially because there's not really much available out there from like an experienced NRL player who can actually come in and really like do well in the back row. Somebody like Fatai Alofa from the Warriors as a bit of like a, coaching somebody's young guy is probably a good shout. But I'd be looking at, aforementioned Josh Kerr, players of that ilk. I heard Ray Stone's trying to get the Dolphins to let him come back from Sydney. Hell, just go get those 3 guys if you can. Like Mark Nichols is off contract too. like literally, like it's the ragtag bunch that can literally just come in and do a job. Because I think that you see Terrell May now, he's starting to show the weariness. He played 80 on the weekend. His post-contact meters were down. It was like 23 runs for 130 meters. He's still delivering value because he's now turned himself into a halfback. But he's he's starting to show signs. Fonua Bolo is sort of not in the same shape as he was at the start of the year. It's a lot to put on the backs of guys like Twal, May, and Bole. I think that they need support big time.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Even if you want another Dolphins player that might, I don't know whether or not he'd come and play in Sydney because he hates New South Wales, but Felice Kafusi's one.
I'd love to sign Felice Kafusi.
That'd be wonderful. But yeah, those sorts of guys I think are ideal. And in terms of, we always look at the off-contract list, guys that, that could do a job at other clubs. Adam Elliott doesn't have a contract. I don't think he gets one of the Knights. Jack Hetherington, the same. Bunty R4, always been a big fan. I think Viliami Fafita at the Dragons has been mismanaged by Shane Flanagan and overtaken by guys like Loco Junior, Pacifica Tonga and Hamish Stewart. He's a guy I'd look into. Jaden Hunt, I think, has had a really, really good year at the Broncos. I'd be looking at him. Those are the sorts of guys for sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah, obviously, yeah. I think he'd fill a different role, but nonetheless, I agree.
Still a middle.
Yeah, definitely. Those are the sorts of guys that we need to be looking into. So, look, I hope they do it, and I agree with you, mate. They do need the middle forward depth, and Canberra. Now they're like obviously flying high, and the Dolphins, 2 of the form teams of the comp, they have more front rowers than I've had hot dinners. It's something that we definitely need to look into, and ultimately, I agree. I just hope that the club sees it that way as well.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that, and we're way off our run sheet in terms of time, but the only thing I'll add to that is that for me, I specifically named the names that I did because they're guys that have performed at NRL level, right? And they're not like ancient. They're older, but they're not ancient. So a guy like Ruben Porter is older, but when we leaned on him, he didn't have the week in, week out grind. He didn't know how to keep himself up week in, week out. A guy like Ray Stone does. A guy like Josh Kerr definitely does. So that's why I'd favour guys like that over, poaching a guy that's untested from another side. That's why I prefer guys like that than Viliami Fafita, for instance. But if you do want to take, a flyer on somebody who hasn't had all that much experience in the NRL, young Martin from Canberra is also off contract, and I think that they favour his younger brother over him. But he's good. He's definitely an NRL level middle, and he's a bit of a pig. Like he's a bit of a bogan. He'd like bite your nose off kind of character. So he's somebody I wouldn't mind having a look at too.
With you there. Anyway, we'll leave the squad analysis there. There'll be more to come, especially next week where we actually look back at our shadow drafts, which some people may remember from January. Tigers 21, Titans 20, Sunday over. Leichhardt, last time a lock forward, kicked the ball via a drop kick through the sticks. It was Paul Gallen to get rid of our top 8 hopes in 2019. Very, very niche reference from Adam Dewey against the Titans late round game. Kick the field goal. This is our house. Get that up, you Jared, you fucking sex offender. One of the ugliest games in years, Mac. Fair or harsh?
Oh, mate, it was a diabolical shit fest. It was so bad. That was like painful and tragic to watch. Like I think most Tigers fans will agree by the end of it, it was like, well, grateful it was over, more so than grateful to have won the game. Like I've never seen a game where we had a match-winning play with 10 seconds and I didn't cheer. I was just like, like towards the last 10 minutes of that game, I was just like laughing at things that were happening. Like, this doesn't make any sense. But it was almost like, at the same time, I had this feeling like it was kind of just going to end up that way because, I don't know, like it seemed like all that we had to do to score was just spin it to Taylor May. And it just took them, they just didn't do it enough.
Yeah, it was a really interesting one because, look, I'm gonna go the glass half full route. Look, we don't have Jareen Buller. Jerome Luai is playing a totally different role. Latu Fainu is a young halfback. Like he reminds me of the quintessential young halfback that's going to do amazing things and then have absolute shocking games. And I think he was pretty poor on the weekend.
I agree with you.
And obviously Tristan Hope started the match, and you've now got Adam Dewey at 13, which I think actually requires an entire rethink. I think that this very, very quarterback-esque work of Api Coruscant in the red zone needs to go. And they kind of just need players on either of Adam Dewey's hips, and Appy just plays the right pass or the one that he thinks is correct. Nonetheless, I think that it was really clunky because of that, but I thought that left edge, and we've spoken about the right edge for so long, and obviously, you know, it was, to begin the year, Galvin, Seafath, Toa, Taruva. Toa and Taruva were the form right edge pairing there for a little while, even better, you know, stats-wise than Crichton and Kiraz. But to see that left edge light up, and we've been not necessarily critical but apprehensive of Adam Dewey's output at left centre, I think obviously you saw the difference there. We've had plenty to say about Taylor May, but look, as a footballer, phenomenal. It's as simple as that. Just the class, the competitive nature, the defensive attitude, and his ability to just, you know, beat his opposite time and time and time again. It was a pretty incredible performance. And when put in context to the fact that he only had 4 weeks to prepare for it, yeah, honestly, yeah, kudos, Taylor. Wow.
Yeah, that was freakish, man. It was very foreboding. I put up a tweet afterwards that I thought Taylor would be starting to field pretty serious offers from other clubs in the wake of that, considering he's not got a Tigers contract for 2026 quite yet. I think the important thing is what you said there is it's only been with the club for 4 weeks, and he's been off of a year and a half absence. So what's he going to look like with another off season? I think I also made another pretty big statement. There's like, based on if that's his level now, and you get the improvement that you would expect from him, you know, building into his best form, surely that's not his best form. 4 weeks back from the long-term layoff, like it's going off pretty quickly to say, but like, where does that player that you saw on the weekend rate in the best outside backs we've seen at the club? Because we've had a pretty threadbare cupboard for high quality, like rep level outside backs. You know, you go all the way back, you can think of guys like Taniela Tuiaki and Lottie Takuri and Chris Lawrence. They're the first 3 names that stand out. But after that, it gets pretty Pat Richards. And then you're starting to go, well, you know, that is kind of tailor-made territory. Like that, and I know, as I say, it is going off pretty half-cocked, but damn, like 4 weeks with the club, He looks like he looks like a guy that came from the Penrith system, doesn't he? He looks like he doesn't look like a West Tiger.
No, he doesn't. Look, him and Stafford Toa have produced the best centre performances this year, and Stafford Cowboys 2023 Leichhardt is an outlier. That was the best centre. Like those two have produced the best centre performances I have seen since Tim Simona was getting about in 2016. And if everybody remembers vintage Simona, you will understand the player that he was.
Yeah, he was good.
I mean, before he started betting on, sort of outcomes of games and influencing them result. But nonetheless, look, his awareness of when to pass and when to take his opposite on, and again his defensive attitude. Yeah, it was a performance befitting of a very, very, very impressive footballer. What can be said? And obviously his brother grew another leg. I think a few people sort of said Terrell got in the way a little bit in attack, but there were some moments where it was almost like they were playing Div 3 Oztag.
Yeah, I got the impression that we were playing against ourselves, like especially in that second half. Like the Titans did not seem to be present.
Just quickly, I mean the May brothers. It was like they were playing Div 3 Oztag, playing amongst themselves. But I agree. It was like we said it to each other. It was like we were playing out. You said the Zhungi in the shadow. I said it was like playing the AI.
Yeah, it was. I don't know where the Titans were, but they were not at Leichhardt Oval in that second half. It just goes to show just how important Tino Fa'asuamaleaui is to that side. And I don't mean to rain on anyone's parade, but we did beat the Titans without him, and he is a big, big deal for that side. And they did have a few players pick up some knocks early. Look, it's a miracle that we won that game. You hit the nail on the head. We played Adam Dewey at 13 for the first time, I think.
Ever.
Maybe ever. I know he's played 13 in SG Ball. I saw some old team lists, but I don't think that he's ever played 13 in first group. Latu Fainu, I think that was the first time that Jerome Luai quite intentionally wasn't playing halfback. That's what I felt like. He was literally like standing off that second receiver a lot. He was way away from the ruck. He was waiting for his moments. It's like he's not trying to game manage anymore, and he deferred it to Latu and to some extent Dewey, which obviously put a lot of pressure on Latu, who doesn't have the reps as a 7, especially in a side that has no cohesiveness, that he has not trained with.
Yep.
And to top it off, Appy had a bad game. Appy didn't distribute very well at all. They had Hope playing for the first 20, who they wouldn't have really trained with much. And then they had Stafford Toa playing weird fullback, switching with Taruva in the red zone. Like, oh man, it was mayhem. Like, but all they had to do to score tries was spin it to Taylor May. So they did, and they scored enough tries to win the game. And it's funny how sometimes you can just win just by being simple.
Look, this team desperately needs a bye so they can actually work on those combinations. But ultimately, they're not going to get it, and they've got 2 of their hardest matches in the coming weeks. But one thing I want to talk about just really quickly was the spray from Benji Marshall. I heard that, obviously, I think a lot of people saw it at halftime, but I heard that there was one at full time that was arguably even worse. And then in the press conference, he didn't mince his words either. And I understand where he's coming from, but yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I think, yeah, the overcomplication of things with, Star playing fullback when in attack when the ball spins right, and then Latu sort of swinging left at the minute. I understand we do that when Jerome Buller's not on the side. But you add Adam Dewey to the mix. You add, Latu, being he's really only played 7 for the last month. It's making for a really, really interesting sort of setup. But with Dewey at 13, it convolutes it even more. But the spray, I thought, from Benji was absolutely warranted, absolutely required. We should have blown the Titans away. And in that first half, when we had our tails up and we were full of energy, they ended up going to the break ahead. I could not fathom it. It was very Tigers-esque. And look, I'm glad we won, absolutely. But I think that the spray was warranted and was needed months ago, if you ask me. Months ago.
2 coaches desperate, 1 playing group desperate. That's what I saw. 2 very, very desperate coaches. Des Hasler reaching the end of his career, looking for some final, a graceful exit. Benji Marshall's career hanging by a thread. One of the teams played for their coach. That team had no cohesiveness or right to win. And the only reason they did win is because of that desperation. You had Terrell May taking matters into his own hands and ball playing and trying to give the ball to Talon. Like, imagine being Terrell May. He's standing there and just going, we can't score tries. But every time Talon gets the ball, he nearly scores. Give me the fucking ball. It's like the big kid passing it to his little brother, just put it on his chest. Just, hey, run, son. And it worked a treat. Good on you. I think that Desi's spray was pretty good too. Getting the lads out of the showers to roast them.
I feel for the fella. He's got nothing left now. But anyway, look, life goes on. Got the win. Helps.
Yeah, it's a shame because, as I said, it's probably for him. Like it's not just him. It's Kieran Foran, right? It's two guys that probably mean a lot to each other. Like, those guys have been together for a very, very long time. Didn't Desi get Kieran to the Dogs as well? Like, am I tripping, or was that anyway? So Des is probably not just upset about the team not putting in for him. He's probably upset for the team not putting in for Kieran. Yeah. Compounds. So look, one thing I will say, and I haven't issued too many controversial hot takes, and I'll do this one, is I would not think it ill-advised that for the rest of the year, especially now that Luai has been moved into that role as the 6, the way Adam Dewey's playing now and the form that he's in, I would not be worried if they played Adam Dewey at 7 and Luai at 6 and gave Latu some time in New South Wales Cup, because as you said, when you watch him, you can see what he's gonna be, right? You can see it, but he needs the reps as a 7. He needs the reps running a team. He's got the skills. He knows how to run a play. He knows what to do from moment to moment. But putting it all together, steering a team around, picking the right moment to do the right things is stuff he has to work on. And this side in first grade can be competitive. Their season's not over yet. They shouldn't be trying to really hone in combinations and stuff in first grade. And that's what they're doing. It looks like preseason week 1 out there. Put Dewey at 7. He wants the ball in his hands. He's playing for his contract. Put the ball in his hands. He's playing the perfect style of game right now for Luai to play 6. Latu Finey can go back to New South Wales Cup, build combos with Marcy, build combos with Luke. Learn from a guy like Kurt Falls, who is, your tradesman like 7, who knows what he's doing. Stick him with Kurt Falls for the next 6 or 7 weeks, and then go into the offseason and say, the 7 jersey is yours come round 1. You've got good-blooded time in first grade. You know what the game's like in first grade. You've had a solid run with Kurt in New South Wales Cup running a team. Now let's do the actual game planning. Now let's build the combinations. Now let's put the tactics down so that come round 1, you look like Isaiah Katoa round 1, 2025, right?
Yeah, interesting. I think that Dewey's presence actually allows Latu to continue to bed down in first grade. I'll probably take a bit of an opposing view. I think that playing Dewey as your first receiver, sweeping both sides of the ruck, controlling the middle corridor, allows Luai and Fainu to play as 6s. Obviously, it gives us another kicking option. And once again, they can sort of set up in that manner. For that reason.
But that's not what we want Latu to be. We want Latu to learn how to play 7. We want him to be the 7 so Luai can be the 6, right? So if he's sitting off of Dewey and Dewey's playing 7 with the 13 jersey with 2 6s, that's not really giving us what we need long term. It's not strategically beneficial, in my opinion.
I don't think it's necessarily a triple. I don't think it's necessarily that Dewey's playing 7. I think he's just controlling the middle, and you're effectively running 3 pivots. Look, I get where you're coming from. I guess the question is whether Latu needs time in first grade to get used to the speed and the contact and sort of thinking on the run and sort of seeing things in that manner and looking at, NRL-based cues, or whether or not, yes, he needs to go back and do the textbook halfback education. I lean towards the former as opposed to the latter, and you lean towards the latter as opposed to the former, I guess. But
I rate Kurt Falls. I think if Kurt Falls had Latu Fainu's physical talent, Kurt Falls would have been an Origin player. Like he's got the mind for it. He knows what he's doing. He's very very cerebral. He kicks at the right time. He just doesn't kick well. He ball plays at the right time. He hasn't got a great running game, but he gets the most out of his talent. And I don't know. There's a trick to that. You know, there's knowledge to gain from a guy like that. For a guy like Latu Finu, I think Kurt Falls actually, now that I put that out there, kind of has the profile of somebody who might end up being a good coach. Those sort of guys do end up being coaches, don't they?
Yes, they certainly do. Justin Holbrook is one of them. I don't really have too much more to say about that game. I thought that it was a brave effort from guys like Alex Twal and Alex Seyfarth to sort of brave the flu and have the performances that they had, so they can hold their heads high. I thought that the Leichhardt influence was pretty clear. Again, you know, we've sort of spoken about Jerome a little bit here and there. I will say that he looked his best taking the line on. For God's sake, just keep doing it. Just keep running the fucking football. I know that we said...
Except for...
Say again?
Except for in the last set of the game when you're trying to set up a field goal.
Well, he nearly scored that try, right? But
But then he did it again, but...
Yeah, true. That was true. But nonetheless, look... When he pins it, that's the best he's looked, and his ball playing comes off the back of it. No doubt that he's going to look even better with Talon outside him and vice versa. But nonetheless, that was a step in the right direction. The existential question as we head into our preview, Joe, can we make the 8?
Well, look, the smart money is definitely not. Like I've done the maths, and I actually believe we have to win every game. I think that if we lose a single game, I think that we're out. After having done the ladder predictor a few times, there are some edge cases where some results go our way and we can lose once. But if we win every game, we get in by a point. That's what it looks like to me, and especially because we have bad points differential. So, you know, obviously it changes things. If we do manage to jag a few big wins, that does improve the odds slightly. But I think we need to get to 32, and that requires every game to be won. And we have some pretty tough asks starting this weekend against the Penrith Panthers. However, there's a narrative here because this week we have Penrith, so we've got Cleary return game against Luai. We actually played them quite close earlier in the year. And then the week after we've got the Dogs, so we've got Lockie. And then the week after, we've got the Sea Eagles, so we've got Brooksy. And there's a bit of a narrative emerging here. After that, we've got our annual Cowboys at Leichhardt fixture, followed by the Raiders, who are the benchmark side in the comp, and who we also played quite close at Campbelltown, and then finishing it off with the team who will probably be going into the final round in last place in the Titans at Seabus. So... Look, if they're good enough, and it starts this weekend, you know, Luai showed that he can shut down Nathan Cleary in that previous game. He knows all the plays. He can see all the cues. Penrith did not really fire too many shots because of that. And I expect that I don't expect they'll have been able to do much to stop that. It's just a matter of whether we click, and I think that that's the case every week. But also, it's the sort of side where if we do click one week, they might just click and figure it out. It's been a long time coming. We've been waiting for it. There's hope, is what I'm saying. There's hope, faithful. You know, there's a narrative there that if we can win the Penrith grudge match and get 2 in a row, and then we go into the Galvin grudge match, and we actually manage to beat the kid. You know, we'll have broken the 3 in a row curse. We'll have beaten Lockie Galvin. Their backs will be up. Then they go into the Brooksy game. There's a narrative, and then we go into the Cowboys at Leichhardt, which, you know what? The last time we played the Cowboys at Leichhardt. Oh, no, we lost the last time, didn't we? The time before that.
Let's take it 1 week at a time. And as you mentioned, the Panthers, 5:30 Saturday at CommBank. I was going to call it Bank West, but I would be incorrect these days. The main team news around the Tigers is that Charlie Staines has been replaced by Isaac Tuitupou, but mainly it's the opposition. Nathan Cleary and Isaiah Yeo return, and just be mindful of one Liam Martin, who is on the bench as he on the extended bench, as he tries to make a return from a hand injury that he sustained in State of Origin 3. Isaac Tuitupo, as I mentioned, will replace Charlie Staines in his last 2 months, so his last 8 games in New South Wales Cup, thanks to the great NBWT. 8 tries, 2 try assists, so 10 try involvements across those 8 games, 9 line breaks, 31 tackle breaks in 8 games, so just under 4 a match, and 177 metres gained. In terms of what he is a big winger, a yardage guy, a presence on that wing, and I think he has improved no end defensively once he's begun to learn the structure. But we'll see how he fares. Ultimately, I don't think you necessarily lose much with Staines. The question for me is mainly just high ball. But a few.
Well, look at how many high balls Staines dropped on the weekend, or at least he dropped 2 and looked like he was going to drop every one of them. So.
Most definitely. Anyway, yeah, but as you said earlier, there are some storylines. Luai Cleary again. Taylor May coming against his old team, and obviously, rightly or wrongly, I think Taylor has a bee in his bonnet about that. Taruva against his old club, but in terms of keys to victory, I think we spoke about them last time. They aren't the same team that they were even 12 months ago. There are holes on their edges. Casey McLean, Tom Jenkins, Isaac Tungle certainly has his moments defensively. There's points to be scored there. I think that a guy like Isaiah Yeo is almost impenetrable on his day, but in order to minimise his attacking output, I think you have to try and make him make a lot of tackles on his first game back after a little while. Hopefully his motor's suffering. I try and exploit that a little bit more, but the game plan I anticipate will be the exact same that it was last week, sort of in thought as opposed to deed, and that is holding the fort until Sione and Whenua get on. It wouldn't surprise me if Api comes off the bench again. If we can hold on for the first 20, we are in with a shout. I think. Look, obviously they've got Liam Henry, Luan Patea, and Matt Eisenhuth on their bench. I think Whenua and Sione can come on and wreak some havoc, providing obviously Whenua stops dropping balls and whatnot. But I think that, again, if I give us a red-hot fucking chance, providing that within the first 20 we are either in front or level.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be a very competitive game. And that's not me being, a Tigers homer. It's because I don't think Penrith are going to be able to really put us to the sword. They didn't earlier in the year. They're in better form now, but I think that may work against them, to be honest, because they coming up against us earlier in the year, they needed the win. At the moment, they're coming off of 6 wins in a row. It's tough to stay up for that long. The Tigers need this win. They'll be hungry. They're coming off a poor performance. They'll train hard. They've shown that they can actually shut down Penrith. The key's just going to be momentary lapses in defence and avoiding them. We lost the last game because Thomas Jenkins had his career best day, and he just had a couple of great moments and scored a couple of tries. I say this quite a lot when we do game previews. It's like, you stop those couple of tries, you stop those couple of moments, you win by 6 instead of losing by 12. It's just how it is. So if we can turn them away and take advantage of our newly found prize recruit in Taylor May, it should be a pretty promising result. We should be competitive. It's a good pair of wingers we've got from a yardage perspective, and we need that. I think that's probably at least partially playing a factor here, because Tui Tupu is going to give a lot more punch out of Aaron End. Not to say Charlie was useless in that regard. He's shown a bit, but Tui Tupu hurts when he runs at you. He's quite large. He's a bit of a skeleton light. So going to be the 2 biggest wingers that we've named in the West Tigers first grade side probably ever.
Yeah, I reckon.
Probably ever.
Yeah, I reckon you're right.
Unless we ever had somebody big opposite Taniela. If we ever got Taniela and Lottie on the field at the same time, we might have given them a run, but we never got to see that, unfortunately. Look, I mean, I think that Casey McLean has to be the target, doesn't he? Like, so Casey McLean, does Casey McLean defend on the right or the left?
I believe he's the left centre, so Stafford.
Right. So that means it'll be Taruva if they keep up that Stafford to fullback crap. So that's probably I would bin that. Like, because we need Stafford to play his role that has made him the highest try involvement player in the NRL. Like, we've taken away our biggest attacking red zone threat for some reason. It makes no sense to me. I know it might be because he's injured, or maybe they just think Taruva's useless at like sweep plays, but it's not like Star's that much better.
I think Star's busted, but yeah, I agree with you. I just leave Taruva where he is, but anyway, one for them to decide on. Look, I think we pretty much said all there is to say. The blueprint is there, and it was there last time. And the good thing about playing them 5 weeks ago is that, a lot of the habits and cues that they might have shown last time are still there, and obviously same with us. But nonetheless, there'll be an opportunity to rework things. Obviously, we're a little bit different now in the way that we set up. People will remember Latu Fainu having a wonderful game at 13. He's now standing on the right-hand side, down the right-hand corridor. You've now got Adam Dewey through the middle. Whether or not that is going to strengthen us or weaken us remains to be seen. But this one will be fun. Even in the darkest moments that we've had, in the past few years, we have always shown up against Penrith. It is always a physical contest. We always play right till the end, and you can be sure that that'll be the exact same again with so many former Penrith players in this side of ours, and so many former Tigers players in their side as well. Fuck me, don't forget about that. Garnsey, Paps, Iso. So yeah, it'll be
Dane Laurie on the extended bench.
Ivan the Terrible. So it shapes up as a good one. We're not in the business of making predictions now because we're 2-1 with no longer picking the score. So,
agreed.
Hopefully that one goes well. But mate, if you've got nothing else to say on that, then I'm happy to jump into pathways.
Just one last thing I would say is generally I think that the potential player we need to shut down here might come as a surprise to you. It's probably Talangi, to be honest. He's sort of he's coming into his own, and he's got that like foot speed in the halves position to kind of, if he gets put in space, he beat a man and away he goes. And that seems to be where we're most susceptible. Although I'm a little bit, it's kind of actually a blessing in disguise, I think, that Tony Sukar's in the side and Alex instead of Sam Weller, because I feel like that they'll probably do a better number on Talangi very specifically than Sam Weller would have. So it might be like, where we've kind of got a weakness that might actually play to our strengths this week and this week alone.
Indeed, my friend. Good luck to the boys on Saturday. Thank God they're playing on Saturday. Put us out of our misery a little bit quicker.
5:30 p.m. Super Saturday.
Indeed, my friend. New South Wales Cup. We'll talk about it quickly. We actually went down to Penrith 28-24 in a game that we most definitely could have won. The ball didn't really go left when we had at one point a left edge of Naden, Solomon Salkuru, Hiamasi Makasini, and Isaac Tuitupor. But life goes on. But nonetheless, a performance that they can take some positives out of. Mac, do you agree?
Yes, the second week in a row that we've gone down after a very good chase down, I think. Or did we win the week before? Man, my memory's short. No, we came up short, nearly running down a score 2 weeks in a row.
The Warriors was the last game, so yes.
That's right, and the Warriors are coming first, and yeah, it's interesting. They've decided not to name Heath Mason this week. He didn't have any injuries that I saw in the game on the weekend, so you have to wonder what's going on there. Alex Lobbs named at fullback. Probably going to improve the side. To be honest, Alex Lobbs actually looked really good at fullback every week that he's played there. He came on the field off the bench on the weekend, I think it was, and he was good. Josh Fellerty's back in the side. But like on that performance, it's another one where I thought Heath Mason underperformed, to be honest. I don't want to like bag the kid out too much because it's starting to make me sound like I have an axe to grind against him, a personal vendetta. But yeah, I'm I think he's playing with no confidence, and it erodes the confidence in the rest of the side. But look, they came from the clouds here. Marcy Marcassini had another stormer. It's probably worth just mentioning him specifically and focusing on him. He didn't get too many chances deep in the red zone, but he's hard to handle anywhere on the field he gets the ball. He's so much faster than I thought he was too, especially for his size. At one point there, he's a gazelle.
His turner speed, bro. Insane.
He's a gazelle. Like he turned and chased a long range try, and he just swallowed the dude up. But the thing that I keep seeing in him, and this is what really has me, and it's maybe a little bit of tism, to be honest, but the thing that has me interested is that the rate at which he draws ruck infringement penalties when he takes a run, I see that only in very special young players. Only very special young players have the whistle. It's actually something you see in a lot of other sports, like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. He has a nice whistle. Shout out to the NBA fans. I think Marcy's got a nice whistle. He gets, but that's because he earns it. When Marcy hits the ground, he's immediately up, and other defenders are trained to count in their heads. But they shouldn't be counting if the guy that they've tackled is getting up. They need to stop, but they'll still do it. So they'll be holding them, and they'll be like 1, 2, 3 in their head. But if Marcy's trying to get to his feet when they're at 2, there's a penalty every time, and he's a beast at it. He drew 4 penalties, 3 the week before, 7 drawn penalties in the first 2 weeks of his open age football career. It's an interesting stat, but it just goes to show how dominant he is. That's an area that the Tigers have not had. Nofaluma used to do it a lot. Like Nofaluma used to draw a lot of penalties coming out of trouble back when he was in his prime. But aside from that, we've always had players. We've always had a lot of bad luck with ruck speed. Refs seem to police us differently, but by and large, he's just an athletic freak that can't be held down. He gets tackled and he finds his front and he springs to his feet. He springs through his feet through the wrestle. He's like for the UFC fans out there, he's like the Black Beast Derek Lewis when somebody's trying to do jiu-jitsu on the ground.
Yep.
He just stands up.
Yeah, man, he is that guy. I made the point, and if you're on X, go and have a look at NBWT's highlight reel that he clipped together, and shout out to the great man. But just the effort areas in terms of cleanup work, when there was breaks or, kicks in behind for him to get back there, which I think that's something he actually really picked up off Talon. Talon was doing that, in the couple of games that he played in Cup that obviously Mussy debuted with at the same time. But obviously his carries, as you mentioned, he draws penalties. He has an amazing turn of speed, great footwork, great contact, uses his bump.
Great fend.
Yeah, could quick play the ball. But also his defensive...
Pen ball play.
Yeah, his defensive contact is first rate. Look, you saw it in his debut.
17.
Yeah, it's insane. Look, you saw his attacking output against Canberra. You didn't see it as much against the Warriors because I think a part of that was being moved to the right side. The Warriors are a great team in that grade. All of those things, sort of contributed to that. Penrith, he went back to the left. He looked far more comfortable, but again, just based his game off hard fucking work. And I actually think now, they almost would have said to him, Talon was your blueprint, mate. Go and have a look and go and do exactly what he does. And, you can see that, and it's reflected within his effort areas. And, for him to have that already, it's his 18th birthday today. Happy birthday, Mussy. For him to have that already in his game as a very, very, very young man is terrifying. And I said this the other day, terrifying for everybody, but not West Tigers fans. That meme where he goes, call the ambulance, but not for me. That's how I feel when it comes to Cine.
I've been a little bit reserved in my praise since he since he started playing again, because he was doing the GPS rugby. It's hard to stay reserved. This is a 17-year-old kid who is dominating New South Wales Cup the way GI dominated NRL.
Yeah.
Well, that's who he looks like on the field. And that's what's he going to look like at 21? Like this kid Marcassini. I know we've like had some pretty highly regarded juniors of late, the Onatonis and the Lockies and the Talons and stuff like that. But this kid Marcy, he's the sort of kid that if he was a New Zealand rugby junior, they'd be talking about him being, the next All Black fucking superstar. Like he's that level of athletic talent. Anyway, there I go. I've just put the curse on him. Sorry, Marcy. Shout outs to Solomon Afar-Tape. I thought he had a fantastic game. The week that everyone was talking about him going off to England, and he's apparently not going to be around the club next year, which is, I think it's a shame because I think he's got plenty of upside. Just a little bit of like a late bloomer, but he was tearing him to shreds every time he got the ball, and he's been named on the extended again this week. So that's his thanks he gets for nearly single-handedly winning us the game. Look, I mean, at the end of the game there, when they were going to him, he was making line breaks at will. Like they could not shut him down, and then Falls decided to try to bomb it instead of actually just spreading it to Fatape. He probably would have just scored. He probably would have just straight up just scored. Like that's it's funny, when you're just a fan, you have that kind of that view. It's like just give the ball to the fast kid. I know it's not that simple, Kurt. I'm sorry. Peter Tarteo had a pretty good game too. I was very impressed with his work off the bench. Brings a lot of punch. He had a really good start to his Magpies career and had been quiet for a few weeks, but this game he really stood out. And Kit Lalali'i, 14 runs for 140 odd meters, was probably his best game in New South Wales Cup too. So this week they've got a little bit of a new look lineup. Mapapalongi's back in the centres. Fellety's back from Flegg, who was great. Staines back in. It's funny. It's like it's a completely different back five to the. It's a completely different back five to the side that was named last week. Every player is different, but it still looks strong. And this Manly side this Bears side they're coming up against is one spot ahead of them on the ladder, but it is not a good team. They're like ships in the night. The Magpies have been competing with good sides and putting in good performances. This Bears side is.
Fingers crossed on a good performance there, mate. Let's talk Flegg. Win over a top three side. Logan Deninja, you had sort of spoke about earlier, but obviously the try that he scored to seal it was top draw.
Ethan Strange style.
There was a lot to like.
I mean, that Flegg performance is probably the best performance from a Tigers branded team this year. In my opinion, it was professional from 0 to 80, and it was a very good side they were up against. It was interestingly similar to the NRL game in one way, though. It's that it looked like the Tigers were the team that had all of the agency in the game. Penrith just looked like they were just there. And it was like really solid individual plays from the likes of that bloody lanky-ass winger Lydiard that kept them in the game. But yeah, he's
a bit of a freak, isn't he?
Yeah, he's tall and skinny, but those tall, skinny models tend to end up in first grade, don't they? Mm-hmm. He does some remarkable things. Very, very hard to stop when he's got space on the outside because he's a beanpole. He can just put the ball down with that one hand, just like hold it like this. For those who are listening, I did the whole claw grip, hold the ball. Yeah, look, I can't say enough about Logan Deninja's performance in this game. Like it was getting real dicey there for a minute. 26-20, I think it was. And they had a line break. They found Lydiard in space. Lydiard wrong-footed Logan. Logan hung a paw out and took the ball off him while he was over the try line. And then 2 minutes later, we're down the other end. Logan takes the ball one off the ruck and he goes himself, steps off the left foot, violent as you like, beats a man, steps again, beats a man, comes to the fullback, steps, slams the ball down, gives us a 2-try buffer. And then, again, about 60 seconds to a couple of minutes later, off a kick, turns at 80 meters, nearly scores a length of the field try, all in the space of about 5 minutes with the game on the line. Oof. That's what you want to see from like a young fullback.
Fucking phenomenal, man. And he's always had this sheer game breaking ability. With Logan, you saw it in SG Ball early because he was used to the physicality because they were kids around his age group. Now going to Flegg, obviously, you deal with fellas that are a couple of years older, a little bit more developed, a little bit bigger, a little bit, sort of, less wet behind the ears. And, you know, he's had games where he's slowly just imposed himself on the contest, and it's been kick returns or moments where you've gone, there it is, like, wow, like amazing. But for him to have that individual moment to score tries, he hasn't had that yet. I think you're going to begin to see a really, really strong end of the year from Logan. A lot, and again, he's the guy where he creates something from nothing. I think that he's going to create those, but they are going to become genuine point scoring plays, or or close to it. You can definitely feel that. And again, it was against Penrith, for God's sake. Like
That's a good side.
They're a very, very good side. Signs are amazing, and I've said this often. Like he just needs a good sports science program. He just needs to be lifting weights.
He needs some juice.
Yeah, he does. He just needs some muscle, and then my God, if he doesn't beat you with footwork, he'll beat you with sheer speed and power. And come through the other side of the collision. He was such a great find. I just can't wait to see what comes next.
Yeah, man. Like it's funny. You're 100% right. Like Logan's the sort of player that when he's at his full playing size, if he's 90 kilos, look out. If he's 85, he might struggle. You know what I mean? Like that just seems to be the way it goes with those sort of style of players. Like if he gets to the same sort of build and body comp as Teddy, or Dylan Edwards, he'll be a force. If he's a little slight whippet, he might just find himself just a little bit like overpowered a bit. But he'll still like I have all the confidence in the world he's going to be a high performing first grade player. He's just too skilled. I'm surprised that he didn't. Like he seems to be flying under the radar. I think like when Queensland kids come down to New South Wales, in terms of like Queensland rep squads and stuff like that, they must not like follow the like New South Wales lower grades as much as they follow the Queensland lower grades, because he was like man of the match in most of the Queensland schoolboys games last year, and he was best on ground during the national schoolboys final apparently last year, and he's playing Flegg and killing it, but didn't even get a look in for the Queensland.
Yeah, me too. But nonetheless, glad he's remained working hard in the Tigers system, and his time will come in that with Queensland honours and whatnot, and again, just cannot wait to see what comes of his next year. Go. Such a good player. Good pass. With you there. Looks like the Flegg boys have a week off this week, so enjoy it, lads. And then they play Canberra again. Very fucking short turnaround. Wow, this time at Lidcombe Oval. The girls. I watched this game. They started really well. I thought. I thought Lozana had some great moments and really led beautifully, particularly with her kicking game and her desire to get stuck in. But it was the second half again that was extremely disappointing. Obviously, Kezi App spent some time off the field, and that was at a time when the Titans really wrangled back momentum and field position. But God, it's just errors at key moments. It's not necessarily the quantity of errors; it's actually the quality of the error, and they are some of the worst errors that you can make. At certain times, and that's what's really hurting them. There is absolutely a team there, but unfortunately, it's a young team with, a smattering of good talent. Sort of stuck about the place, and I really do think it's reflecting within our game model and our play style. Yeah, I could not agree more. Oh my. Quite possibly. Anyway, who have the girls got this week? Let me just have a quick squeeze. They are facing the Sharks. The Sharks. Yeah, okay. Obviously better than where their ladder position reflects. All right. No, well, they're running eight currently, but it is early in the year, so we'll see what happens there. Obviously, Tiny, obviously. Um, Brooke, Brooke, Brooke Anderson's a gun. Not making some calls. That might have been defensively minded. I'm not too sure, but anyway, good luck to the girls this week, mate. Let's do some Q&A and then bounce. I think it's been good content though, nonetheless. With you. Yeah, I think they will. I heard a rumor that it was either worse than what what was initially reported, or he actually re-aggravated it. I don't know which one's which. I think he'll be back after the bye. Sammy, NRL physio mentioned that, and obviously again, grain of salt, as good as the great man is, he thought that it was a 1 to 2 week prognosis, so he might be another week. Yeah, I think so. It was actually. I can give a bit more light to this. So it was in the first block. It was early. So from sort of like November into early December, it was all mussy. Like just getting bumpers through offloading. Like Salsa Kuru was doing time on the wing at that point. He was just scoring try after try after try. The session that they had before Christmas, so they had everybody back with the exception of Terrell May. um, Starford gave Mussy a bath. It got to the point where he actually went, you know what, fuck this, I have to do something, and that I think it was that session, and then ultimately the next block that was what has laid the foundation for what's to come with Star. But yeah, I think Mussy's left wing next year to start. So yeah. Yes, because I think that his player pool is associated with him being a legend. Yeah, I think probably by now he would have. Um, yeah, I think it's right there. Ooh, that's a great question. Goodness gracious me. Those are the guys that you anticipate should have the footballing IQ. And they're the ones that I thought did. there's definitely been some low IQ moments, throughout the season. There's also been some reasonably high IQ moments from them. Obviously, what Uppy did against Redcliffe in Redcliffe is one that immediately springs to mind. Who would it be? Adam Dewey. He's probably the highest IQ slash most invested guy, I'd say. Um, yeah, he's probably the guy. Oh, God, he was a meme last year, a meme. Like, that's all right. It's been a long episode. I'm going to say neither. Centre. Yeah. Um, I have some breaking news, everybody. It looks as if Javon Andrews, it's being reported by the Daily Telegraph, has signed with the West Tigers. It did get announced. Uh, for the For those that don't know Javon Andrews was the man of the match for Queensland in the most recent under 19 State of Origin game. Very big, thick set 5'8". Very, very creative footballer, can beat you in a multitude of ways, and has an amazing story. He was actually contracted to the Tigers. The poor fella had a spine injury, I think it was, and that contract sort of fell by the wayside. Needed to do his rehab in Queensland and so forth. He has just signed a 3-year deal with the Tigers. I believe first year will be development. A very, very good pickup and some great work from our football department. Very, very exciting. Obviously, that means that our development squad is now full on 6 players, but a fucking great pickup. Yep. And here we are. Very with you there. Yeah, I think so. I think he might be that guy, or even down that 13 route. But nonetheless, let's wait and see. What other questions we got? Yeah, there is. Beautiful. Guys, Mac, you can actually trample on my grave if you'd like next week, because I'll obviously be away, but I know that you're going to go through the shadow draft stuff. You can probably do a rundown for me while I'm not here. It's been good, guys. I'll see you in a couple of weeks, and all the best with your West Tigers watching or hate watching, depending on which side of the fence you're on this weekend. We'll be in touch.